that after the first day you're there, you look 20 years younger physically?
No, not at all.
Well,
not at all. So, but here's what I was thinking. There might be one downside.
Okay.
And that would be we'd end up with all of these ravishing beauties looking 20 years younger in this super romantic environment. My God, you're going around the earth getting a sunrise and sunset or whatever every 45 minutes, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly romantic. I mean, the gal's expectations would be sky high, right?
Yeah.
But if the blood rushing from the bottom of the body toward the top of the body is good for the girls, I was thinking, maybe it might not be so good for the guys.
Well, it comes back to hydraulics. You got
hydraulics?
Yes. Well, you got a heart, and the heart is a pump, and the pump will pump pressure up through the hydraulics, the blood vessels, and you'll be just fine. As a matter of fact, you'll be better than you would be here because it will have less resistance in a microgravity field. So actually, you might look a little larger than life, you might say. Because things swell bigger.
Okay. Well, in other words, the heart, freed from the
gravity field.
It's normally used to having to pump real hard to defy gravity. Now it no longer has to defy gravity, so it's just thumping away.
It's pumping real hard, and it causes the pressure to rise a little bit, which has never really been a problem for any of the astronauts because normally they're in such good health when they go. But on the serious side, there will be some drawbacks. But for people who are visiting space for short term like that, it won't be a problem for you, like calcium leaking out of your joints or your heart going into atrophy because it doesn't have the gravity field to resist it. For a short term, 1 or 2 weeks, you wouldn't even be bothered by any of that.
I always thought that maybe even more fun than zero G. Zero G would be fun, but I'm subject to being seasick.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you have the feeling of falling in zero G.
Now what happens, your inner equilibrium gets out of kilter up there because it doesn't have the gravity field to center itself on which one.
But what would it be like, David, to have just a little bit of G? I mean, like a 10th or a 20th of gravity to the point where, like, you could put your finger on the floor and push and you'd go boing into the air gently and come back down
again. That'd be like on the moon. That's a 1/6 gravity field. It'd be pretty good. As a matter of fact, you can increase it a little bit more. Like Gene was saying earlier, we don't have to spin this wheel that fast. We could create a half G field out on the outside ring, which would take care of all the toilets and plumbing and water flow and all that such. Be pretty much like on Earth, but still, let's say you weigh 200 pounds here on Earth.
Yep.
Well, at that moment, you only weigh 100 pounds. So your muscles are designed and built for carrying and resisting 200 pounds of weight.
So it's like you're Superman.
You would have tremendous strength. You jump clear from the ceiling.
That's exactly how Superman did what he did in the old Superman movies, right? I mean, Krypton was a real heavy place.
Very dense.
Very dense.
Like Jupiter.
So Superman then had super strength. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know that it accounts for all his other abilities, but certainly for his strength, it would be the same kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of indirectly would be same effect, but it sure would make you feel pretty strong because you could jump probably flat-footed from the floor to the ceiling because the strength in your legs would be more than enough to overcome it.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
You pick up your wife romantically and carry her with some resistance. The half-gravity field could be even more pleasant for romantic encounters in a weightless environment because you need a little resistance to be able to get momentum and inertia and that kind of stuff going.
Momentum and inertia, yeah. Interesting words to apply to sex. All right, well...
Expect from a rocket scientist.
You, as a rocket scientist, a guy who has built and launched all of these rockets, you must, more than anybody else, wonder what it would be like. Have you ever experienced zero G?
I have in the Navy, and experimental aircraft. We would be at we get the same thing that what we call it, NASA has the Vomit Comet, which is a big aircraft that goes to 90,000 feet and then free falls for a couple of minutes. That's what you see on TV when people are floating around in a room.
So what is it like?
It's kind of interesting. Well, some people, you've experienced it somewhat. When you go on a roller coaster and it drops out from under you.
Oh yes.
You know how that everything's coming up to your.
Yeah, generally you scream.
Well, it's a little bit more gentle on the Vomit Comet, but when you get in space, it's not quite such a sensation. But the first few seconds, the reason you catch it so quick on a roller coaster is because you're moving at such great speeds and it drops so quickly. It's a more gradual sensation like that, and then eventually it planes out where after your equilibrium catches up with it, the sensation stops, and then you just feel the weightlessness. But you do run into a phenomenon out there called space sickness, which it's interesting. It strikes randomly. There's no pattern.
Just like seasickness.
In a way, well, people who can get seasick will not get space sick. And people who never get seasick will sometimes get space sickness. It's just, there's no random reasoning for it. Really don't understand it all that well yet. But one thing that is common.
Does it have something to do with the inner ear, maybe?
Sure it does.
Balance?
But one thing that is common, all who gets it, 2 days later, they all lose it, and it goes away.
Really?
Yes. You do not keep it like, you can stay seasick for a week on a ship.
Oh, yeah.
That will not happen up there. You'll have seasick. If you do get space sickness, it's going to hang with you about the first day and a half, and then after that it will dissipate and it will not come back.
Huh. Well, I would love to do it. And at age 60, if I could go up, that really, really, really is something to look forward to. And so I really hope this happens.
I do too. It's the most viable way. Like I said, it's an old idea. It's not like, it's brand new, 1990s. Heck no, it's designed in the 70s, late 70s
well, look,
idea.
Here we've got the Mir, which I call an experiment in mortal terror. And
it's pretty grim.
We've got this real expensive space station, $80 billion, headed toward $100 billion in cost already, and they're just beginning.
Yeah, you don't
planned.
You don't have it. You're still on the drawing board.
And still, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think there's a gravity aspect to the International Space Station. Is there?
There's no gravity whatsoever.
Why not?
Once again, they say that the whole idea for going out there is to have a weightless environment, which I totally agree from my aspect on space manufacturing.
Fine, but why not have both?
Well, that's an excellent question. It's very valid. They would have to build a bigger structure, and there's just no rhyme or reason for it. That's just it. Their logic flow pattern is just not there. It doesn't make sense only until you factor in the special interest groups and the greed factors and all that. And then it makes total sense why they don't do logical things.
I'm so sick of that.
I know.
It comes down as a reason for why we don't do a lot of things more sensibly. Greed, special interests, politics, same old crap all the time.
That's right. It's going to follow us out in space unless we change ourselves. And
yeah, think of it, David. Eventually, as a spacefaring race, we would export all of this. This greed. We would export bureaucracy. We would export bad politics and bad economics to the entire galaxy.
Look what you did to American Indian. You gave him alcohol, tobacco, and syphilis.
Yeah. All right. Stay right where you are. Bottom of the hour, and we will be right back. David Adair, who is a real rocket scientist, is my guest this evening. Following up on the Gene Myers Show. I'm serious. At age 60, I'll have 2 tickets, round trip, I hope, for 2 weeks in space. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Here again is David Adair, all the way from Georgia. David?
Yes.
Somebody's asking me, and I've always wondered about this too. If you were not inside the space station and you were outside, as in a spacesuit, how cold would it be? Not in the suit, but I mean in space.
It averages between 200 and 250 below zero.
Oh, man, that's really cold.
It's cold.
200 to 250 below zero.
Right.
Now, I've seen a lot of pictures. By the way, Alien 4 is coming out. You know, a lot of science fiction stuff. If you lost, do you remember in 2001, David, when our astronaut got locked out?
Right.